Hi, welcome to Mental Health Monday. We are on our series of play. I'm Heidi Gaiman from HeidiGaiman.com, and this series of play, so far we have talked about the definition of play, and you can see that in the archives on Heidi Gaiman Writes YouTube channel. You can also find it still on our Facebook pages and our Instagram TV and stuff, but this one, we're going to talk about play and adults. So the first one we talked about definition of play. The second one we talked about play and kids. And so if you're interested in that, you can go back to the play and kids from last week. But today I want to talk about play and adults. And this is two things I don't think we connect very regularly. I think we usually connect for adults the idea of recreation or entertainment or even rest, but we very rarely connect the idea of playing with adult behavior, correct? So first, let's just take that off the table and reintroduce the idea of play to adult life. Why would we want to play? Well, everything we've studied so far tells us that play is good for our brains, it's good for our hearts, it's good for our souls and our spirits, and it especially is part of us whether we want to acknowledge it or not. We at one point had a very close relationship with play, all of us, because we were once children. And that tiny person, I believe really firmly, still lives inside of us and needs some attention. And so we need to kind of look at the role that play has played in our life, how much freedom and play we were able to have as children, whether because of our own personalities and our own needs, as well as our family structure. And so play gives us a space as kids, as we talked about in the video last week, in the Kids and Play video, to have that sense of freedom, to be attached to the people around us, whether that's caregivers, but also, social environments and friendships and belonging. It also keeps us in tune. It gives us the ability to read social cues and know what someone else needs. And so play really is a really important thing for us to have as children. How much of it did you have in your life is one question to ask yourself. What was my relationship with play when I was a kid? And how do I see that reflected now in my sense of freedom and attachment and attunement today as an adult? So that's kind of some important things to think about when we think about play. So you have that relationship with play as an adult, whether you recognize it or not. It's somewhere inside of you, that idea of play. And so maybe, is it time to let it out a little bit more, or at least to pay attention to what you need, what you need in your life right now. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean you can just go well, I don't need to work. I'd really like to play and go do all the things. No, but at the same time, we all have freedom in our life to some degree. Yes, it's harder. It's harder for some people, like people who are single moms or single parents, just trying to do the stuff in life. But where are those tiny moments where we can grab play, or big moments when we can grab play in our lives? So adults, a lot of research says that adults find play in some specific areas in life. And then I actually added a couple of my own, I guess I kind of pulled some out. So if you have comments, I'd like to know how you like to play as an adult. What was your relationship with play as a child is, one question, and I would love to hear about that, but I find that people see that as a very vulnerable space. So if you don't want to share it in the comments, you can send me a message. I'd love to hear. But more than that, for today's topic, how do you like to play as an adult? What does that look like to you? And then at the end of the video, we'll go back to how does that stuff you like to do now, how does that connect to your experience as a kid? So adults in play kind of happens in some different realms, and maybe you can add more, but the things we know from research that adults especially connect to play well are nature or the outdoors, art, and we'll define that further, but art of any kind, music, And like I said, I kind of pulled some of this out because it's important, I think, to get a little more specific because we're all very different. Music, having a relationship with music, and what does that look like for our lives in play? Words, words are something important to us in play, and particularly in the aspects of story and the narrative, but I wanted to just leave it at words in particular, and movement or physical activity. Movement is the way we say that because it looks different for different people. So let's look at each of those. Let's look at nature. What kind of relationship do you have with play and nature? Tell me, what kinds of things do you like to do or are playful for you in nature? For a lot of people, this can look like exploring and discovery. Play has a lot to do with our curiosity and to seeing how things connect, trying things, helping the pieces of the world kind of connect together. And I think you can kind of see how that would be really present for us in nature. So whether that's just taking a walk in the neighborhood and listening to birds, some people, that's like their hobbies are very clearly nature related. I love hiking. Anywhere I go, I want to go out for a hike and see and kind of climb. And you can see how that connects both physically, like the kind of strenuousness of hiking, but then also the sensory experience of like hearing nature sounds. That feels really playful to me. Discovering different animals, you know, it's super fun. My husband especially is like really obsessed with like, there's a deer, there's a squirrel. I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? I remember one time we were on the Silverton Railroad on our honeymoon outside of Durango, Colorado, and we saw a bear, a black bear, and it's like, well, there's a bear. Whoa! You know, that feels really playful. That's one reason the zoo is a really playful place. And so just connecting with nature in different ways. Again, the zoo, that's a good place to experience play in nature and have our minds widened a little bit, but it does feel playful to be surrounded by all kinds of different creatures. You know, people also like go on safari or go bird watching. What kinds of ways do you experience play in nature, just to get out there? Some people like to garden. That's another way we experience play in nature. Remember, the important parts of play are that it doesn't have to have a purpose. So it starts to be not playful when I'm gardening if I'm like, I need to create food for our survival, right? You know, things like that. And so consider how can the things that I'm doing in nature, if that's helpful for me, if that's one huge expression of play for me, how can I keep it playful and without purpose? How do I get lost, lose that sense of time, and have that sense of like freedom within nature spaces? Where do I go to have that? You know, it's different for different people. So something to think about. It's one reason beaches or waterfalls, water things are really helpful for people. Excuse me. Is because that sensory experience and that kind of sense of freedom when you're like floating in water and things like that. Art is another one. So what kinds of art do you like? What kind of art feels playful to you? It was not until I was like mid-30s that I discovered that I actually really liked abstract art. It actually felt for so long for me, abstract art, and I think this was because I hadn't had a lot of therapy yet, it felt really unsafe because I didn't understand it. And I was really uncomfortable. It wasn't playful for me to go to a museum and look at abstract art or to experience abstract art around me because I wanted to be able to understand something. And so you can see how there's no freedom in even the way I'm like describing that. Instead, when I was able to look at it and be like, I don't need to understand it, it becomes playful for me then instead. So I actually really enjoy abstract art now because it feels safer, frankly. It feels like, oh, I don't need to understand this. Instead, I just enjoy the colors, maybe textures, things like that. So what kind of art is playful for you and how can you experience that? Sometimes certain techniques like doing art for us, and what kinds of techniques are really playful for you? I really enjoy photography and I enjoy like putting them into photo books. But I discovered that when I was on a time deadline, deadline, like, oh my goodness, I need to finish our family's photo book for this year, it becomes not playful anymore because remember, I'm not able to disconnect from a sense of time when I'm doing it. I feel rushed and everything. And so you can see how our adult lives kind of like come into our ability to have a sense of play. But find an area of art that might be playful for you. A lot of people have an experience with like Bible journaling or visual faith tools, and that feels refreshing for them. It can feel very restful for them. The question is, does it feel playful? Now, everything doesn't have to feel playful, but maybe that's something you can bring into that space. You know, a bit of whimsy, if you will, like something that doesn't need to be or look a certain way. And that's going to make it more playful than when there's a structure and a guide and a way it needs to look. Music, how many of you love music, and how is music playful for you? What kind of music is playful for you? There's probably music that really speaks to your soul, and that's a really good thing. What kind of music speaks to your creative spirit, your desire to dance maybe, or engage in the music in some way? That's the music that's going to be playful for you. Words are another way. And as a writer, like, words are really important to me. I love words. I think we all have a relationship with words. And I think that we could communicate a little bit better if we do have a space for words to be playful. So that means, is there a space in my life where words don't have to have a lot of meaning, where words don't have to be exactly defined the way that they need to be, in the way where I don't have to sound the way I'm supposed to sound? You know, is there spaces in our life like we can tell a joke or be silly or laugh that doesn't have to look or feel or act like a certain way? Hopefully a lot of us have that in our home with someone we love. Hopefully some of us have it in a friendship. But where is that space for you where your words can tumble out and they can be playful and have just a bit of silliness to them, you know, and it isn't always just like serious, like getting the job done. That I think will be a helpful aspect of us engaging in play in our life. And the last one is movement. So some people experience this in exercise, like they're like, I just feel so like, oh, I lose a sense of time when I'm running. And that's awesome if that's you. That is not me. I have tried it again and again where I'm like, yeah, I can't even feel it when I'm running once you get to a certain point. But guess what? For me, that's never happened. And so I had to realize, like, what is the movement that feels playful for me? So for me, I find that in dancing. For other people, they may not find that in dancing. That would be the exact experience I had with exercise, right? They would be like, dancing is not freeing. It feels really constricting and I feel like I'm supposed to do something right or whatever. So that's one way to think of movement and how it's different for everybody with play. Also, different stretching and stuff is one way to experience play and movement, usually because our bodies so often feel really constricted into like seats and into the way we have where we're going. You know, our bodies hold that sense of purpose and stuff and drive in life. So stretching can really be a place where we can find some play and movement. You know, kids are good at this. Like they turn their bodies upside down on the couch and reset their brains by like hanging upside down. And so, you know, I like to sit with my feet up in Indian style, even in chairs and things. That gives me a sense of freedom and a sense of play even when I'm doing something really serious. Do we have to have play 100% of the time, all the time in our lives? No. But when we can bring a sense of play into it, I think it really helps our brains to engage and to give us spaces and places that feel really safe for us in our lives. And I do think we're more productive that way. Even though, remember, play has no purpose. I do think it creates productivity, creativity, when we are able to move our bodies in the way we need to, when we're able to engage in music that's playful for us, or be out in nature, or share words in a safe space, you can see how that would really impact our lives and our lives together. So I don't see any questions and no talking today. You guys are killing me here. I love to be able to hear from you, especially in this topic of play. It is kind of sensitive for people, and I'm really surprised. It feels really vulnerable. And so feel free to send me a private message. Like I said, share with me on the About page. There's a little form you can fill out to tell me some stuff. But just continue to like search these things in your own life. Like, what do you like to do to play as an adult? Throw it up in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And you can always throw it up on the YouTube archive too. You can always find me at HeidiGaiman.com and our mental health page at HeidiGaiman.com. And we'll see you every Monday at noon Central Standard Time on Facebook, 12:30 on Instagram for more on our series on play. See you next time.